Hello, boys and girls. You are watching Straight White Male, apparently. I want to talk about something that I touched on in my last video about the regressive left, which is problematic terminology. In particular, terminology that it may not have originally, but goes on to effectively attribute characteristics or a set of characteristics to a certain group of people. The kind of terms I have in mind are the regressive left, toxic masculinity, white privilege, this kind of thing. Before I go on to talk about why these terms are problematic, I just want to go ahead and say that attributing any kind of inherent failure or shortcoming to a group of people based on their sex, their skin color, or even their political beliefs is sexist, is racist, is bigoted. I think it's fucking disgusting in some cases. Particularly some of the things that are said and done in the name of anti-racism. But let's save that talk for another day. These terms are problematic to say the least, and they serve to undermine the very point that they're trying to make in several important ways. For starters, they're likely to elicit a lot of resistance from the target group, resistance that is going to be met with even more resistance and result in significant polarization. The problem here is that there should be no target group, apart from obviously the group demonstrating the undesirable behavior. Take toxic masculinity, for example. Now, I understand what toxic masculinity is. Okay, so I'm not denying its existence. But these terms leave too much room for interpretation. People who don't understand are going to push back, thinking it's an attack on all men, for example, with toxic masculinity. What's lacking here is a clear understanding of what the term is supposed to be referring to, which is destructive behavior such as rape and physical violence. There are people out there who don't understand that masculinity can come in many forms. It's not some tangible commodity that one can have more or less of. Masculinity cannot be inherently toxic. That's nonsense. But there are toxic forms of masculinity. Rape culture, for example, among groups of men is a form of toxic masculinity. Some men don't understand that and are poised to push back on anything they perceive to be an attack on men or manliness. Because believe it or not, that is a real fight. You have people misappropriating the term, basically labeling any behavior they don't like as being toxic. I've seen content that labels competitiveness as a trait of toxic masculinity, that labels the objectification of women as a trait of toxic masculinity. Not to mention toxic femininity, which is not even really talked about. There are actually sexist people out there who use terms like this one as ammunition. The problem is that these terms result in more emphasis being put on the group mentioned rather than the phenomenon that we would, in theory, like to rectify. White privilege exemplifies this pretty well. If there are privileges that sometimes come with being white, I know that phrase alone, wow, sounds really ignorant. Let's put it this way: if white people are sometimes privileged, slightly better, as a result of racism in the past and systematic racism that remains, for example, it certainly does not benefit all white people. I'm going to go into this another time, but surely it depends on your value system as well. but there are white people that are met with setbacks just like everyone else. There are poor white people, for example. I'd say it's a problem that goes deeper than just skin color. Like, for example, we could talk about how public education is funded in the United States. Only 10% of it, I believe, is federal, and the rest comes from local and state property taxes and stuff like that. So basically, if you come from a poor neighborhood, you're going to a shitty school. And there's white people in some poor neighborhoods as well. I'm not trying to say that that black people don't have it tough in ways like that, such as the way that public education is funded in the States. It's probably primarily black people and black neighborhoods that are affected by that kind of structure. But nonetheless, it's not merely because of skin color. There are poor white people, there are rich black people. But that's just the thing. The problem with these terms is that they put a focus on this group instead of a focus on, to use white privilege as an example, the underprivileged. Surely we do well to focus on the underprivileged rather than attempt to instill shame in the minds of all white people. It's funny how anti-racism often requires people to be blatantly racist in this way. Yeah, it's fucked. But that's basically all I have to say for now. I'm gonna dive deeper on some of these topics in other videos, but I had to talk about this because it doesn't make sense to me to even terms like regressive left. Okay, I am against the regressive left and everything they stand for, but there's people on the right who hear a term like that, and once again, it's ammunition for the polarization, for people on one side of a very polarized sort of playing field, such as left versus right in politics, women versus men in feminism. I'm all for equal human rights among all groups, but the problem is we have stupid people on this planet, and we have vindictive people. Toxic masculinity is the kind of term often thrown around by people who will also throw around phrases such as "kill all men," and try and tell me that that's not fucking crazy. Anyway, feel free to hit like, subscribe. Don't forget to tap that little notifications bell, and I will see you again next time.